Wherever we're at. I think, let's see, we just turned noon. So good afternoon. Hello, how are you? It is good to see everybody. We are streaming live on Facebook and YouTube and in the Meaning of Design Zoom room. So I am happy to see you guys. Oh my goodness. Is there anything that I've forgotten to do here? Let me figure this out. Okay, we are recording. We can breathe. Okay, I am going to breathe. I've since I don't know what time this morning, 9 o'clock, getting the blocks into the heart quilt. It's but I am finally ready. Okay, now then, I did want a couple of links to give to you guys. So let me just find those and I will pop them in the chat for you. You can give me just a second. You know what I did forget to do? I forgot to plug the internet in. I'm in the other room. Give me one moment and I got the whoa, the Ethernet cable, which allows me to plug directly into the wall instead of relying on Wi-Fi. So that should help us out a lot. Okay. That's one of them. And remember the other one is okay. Here we go. Okay. So, anyone interested in a week in Devon in England in September? If you have any interest, there were 9 spots. I understand that there are now only 7 spots left. I will be there at Quilt Direct in Tavistock, Devon. It is a gorgeous place. As a family, we used to go down to Devon, not every year, but we've definitely been a handful of years, and we would find a spot to park a tent, and we would have a camping holiday. So we typically go for a couple of weeks, and we had an entire camping situation. We had the main tent and we had the brown tent, which my dad insisted was green because he's colorblind. And we had the toilet tent and the porta potty and the whole works. We had some really fun times as a family. So I'm looking forward to going back to Devon again. Let me find my chat here. So, okay, where did it go? One would like to think, does anybody else have the chat available? There is, oh, there it is. I found it. Okay, so if you are interested in a quilting retreat in Devon in September, I just posted the link where you can go and check out what we're doing. We're going to be stitching up a 3D mini quilt. I am 95% confident that in the 4 days of stitching and then the Wednesday in the middle is going to be a day of exploring. Anybody who wants to come to me to find a Devon beach, that I think is where I will be heading off to. Can't say it's going to be swimming weather in September, but I love to walk on the beach. So we'll see. Anyhow, there's also going to be a really nice celebration dinner. We can get all dressed up and snazzed up. I have to see if I can actually get into my cocktail dress because I was contemplating bringing that with me. But we will have a ton of fun. There will be lots of good friendships made. I'm going to say there's lots of great friendships made. It's going to be amazing. So if you are interested in that, the link is in the chat. And I will pop that link if I can find the chat. If anybody is listening on YouTube or Facebook, I have just put that link there for them. Okay, so that's in September. April. I had the opportunity to go to a retreat myself at the end of April, the last week in April. I think it's the 25th through the 27th. And a friend of mine had called me and said, hey, I've never done this before, but I've seen your hearts and I want to do that. How do I find out if I can do it? So I figured, okay, let me call Lisa at Once Upon a Quilt in Fort Lauderdale, which just happens to be across the street from my friend's favorite restaurant. And so I don't know exactly where she lives, but she's within a 30-minute drive from there. And in arranging for my friend Kathy to go and borrow one of Lisa's machines and have someone show her how to stitch up one of the awakened hearts, I said, why don't I just come and show you myself? And if anybody else wants to come along, you can come along too. So on April 24th, it is a Wednesday afternoon, 1 o'clock till sometime between 4 or 5 o'clock, depending on how long it takes. I will be at Once Upon a Quilt. We will be stitching up Awakened Hearts. And if you would like to come and join us for that, I just popped the link for that in the chat as well. And the cost of the class includes the design collection. So if you've already purchased the Awakened Hearts design collection and you'd like to come to the class, then send me an email. Lisa is going to send me a sign up, especially for my people who have already purchased a collection but are in Florida or are going to be in Florida and would like to come. So send me an email if you would like that link and I will get that to you. So that's April 24th, 1 o'clock, Once Upon a Quilt in Fort Lauderdale. I'm actually going to be in Miami. So if anybody has any good ideas on how to get from Miami to Fort Lauderdale, I gather it's just a 30-minute hop up a freeway. I will more than likely rent a car when I'm there, but I'm also going to be finding a beach. So Thursday morning, if you're in Fort Lauderdale or Miami or wherever, anywhere in that vicinity on the Thursday morning, the 25th of April, I will be going to find a beach. If you would like to come and walk on the beach with me, I would be very happy to have some company. Okay. Joe says, do you need me to babysit Jazz and Ruthie? You know what, Joe? If you are going to be in town, Jazz may well appreciate some company. She is more than likely going to be spending at least a couple of nights home alone in practice for leaving home and going off to college in August. So, okay, let's see. I need another breath here. Okay, we have, for those of you who were at here last week, we had an amazing show and share. It was so delightful to see what everybody has been working on. And we had a bunch of questions from last week, which I put off until this week. So let's get going with those first. I had the first one of where did my questions go? Okay, so let me see. Lynette is not here, and I don't actually understand her question. So let's go to the next one. Excuse me. Okay, nobody who asked questions a couple of weeks ago is actually here. Polly has a question. And Polly is not here at the moment, but this is actually an easy question to answer. So we have Zoom doing its really interesting thing at the moment where it is doing a random, Gloria, I don't know if you were on everybody's screen right now, but if you were watching the replay, you had a moment of fame. You were the spotlight on the screen. Zoom picked you at random from everybody who's here in the Zoom room to be spotlighted. So, okay. Polly says, if you are dealing with a pre-made zipper that's bigger than the project and you're not using zipper tape, how do you deal with that? So for the Awakened Hearts, and I'm in the other room, so all my stuff is on my desk and out there, but never mind. If when you're making the Awakened Hearts, you have a zipper on the back, and I like to use zipper tape because I can cut it at whatever size I want it to be, and then just slide put a slider on it. If you don't have any zipper tape, but you do have a zipper that's longer than you need, a pre-made one, so it's got the stopper on the end to prevent the slider thing coming off, and it's got the slider already on it, you can literally just cut it to the size that you need. So pretend it's zipper tape, definitely chop the stopper off the end, and I'm even going to go as far as saying cut the stopper off the beginning of it as well. It is super easy, albeit it takes a tiny bit of practice, but you can always put a zipper, the zipper slider back onto a zipper once it has come off. And it is a whole lot easier to stitch zippers in when they have not got the slider on them. So my recommendation, if you are using a pre-made zipper, chop the end off, actually chop both ends off, even if that means chopping the zipper tab off. So make sure your zipper's closed, chop the end off first, and then chop the beginning off so the zipper is as long as you need it to be, stitch it into the heart or the back of the heart, and then put the zipper tab back on it again. And I believe there, if I remember correctly, we have got a video on how to put the zipper tab on. We definitely did it. I think we did it in a Zoom a couple of weeks ago, or 2 sessions ago. So definitely we have a video showing you how to do it, and it takes a couple of times to kind of get the hang of it, but it is pretty simple. So it's actually really easy if you have a pre-made zipper on hand. Okay. Let's see. Nancy is asking if I have any videos regarding Jazzilicious. And she actually has called it Jazzilicious, which I love because the name Jazzilicious is kind of a shortened version of Jasmine is delicious. So we don't have any videos specifically for Jazzilicious, but if you go to our Meaning of Life Designs YouTube channel, and let me pull that up, I will get you a link. We do have quite a few videos up there, and at least one of them which will give you our technique for putting a design exactly where you want it. And it doesn't matter how old the design collection is. Jazzilicious came from, let me see if I can remember, it was either 2010 or 2011. So that's quite a long time ago, but we were still using the same technique to get a design exactly where you want it so that you can keep the size of your background fabric as small as possible, and get the design precisely situated. So we have on our YouTube channel. I am just coming up with the links. It is a video called How to Position a Machine Embroidery Design Exactly Where You Want It. It's actually showing you how to do this using the Sunshine Code blocks, and it works for every single design collection we ever made. So the link for that is in the chat. We'll also pop it up on YouTube and Facebook if you are watching, or if you want to go back and watch. If you're thinking, oh my goodness, I remember Sarah posted a link to that. If you look at the video in your library, you won't get the links in the chat. But if you go to either our YouTube channel or Facebook and find the post, you will see the chat there. And any links that I post in that chat, they will be there. Okay, let's see. Next up, Stephanie has an interesting question. So, and I don't see Stephanie here either. Stephanie is working on Simply Dreaming. There's actually a lot of questions about Simply Dreaming. So, she says, and she stitches on a Brother Luminaire. Anyone else using a Brother Luminaire? Could you give me a wave if you have a Brother Luminaire? Wendy, you do. And I know Joe has a Solaris, which is essentially the same machine. Let me know if either of you two have experienced this. So Stephanie says, sometimes I find the Brother ScanNCut appliques are very exact, but when I place them on the pre-stitched area, it can be a bit short, particularly on the larger pieces. Am I doing something wrong? And my answer to that is no, you are not doing anything wrong. What I have found is that, and as Stephanie said, especially for the larger pieces, the ScanNCut, the Cricut Maker, the Silhouette Cameo, they all will cut accurately. So if you cut a 10-inch square on any of those machines, you will actually wind up with a 10-inch square. If you cut an 11.5-inch square, which is the biggest thing that you can cut, you can cut just a tiny bit bigger than 11.5 inches, that will also be very accurate. However, if you actually have a, well, it doesn't matter how wide it is, but certainly lengthways, if you were to stitch a 10-inch square on any of the machines, my experience is that some of the machines, not all of them, but some of them will actually shrink that design. So even though what you're stitching should measure 10 inches, it doesn't necessarily measure 10 inches. And the bigger the thing gets, the more error you end up with. So for instance, in the Bernina mega hoop or maxi hoop or jumbo hoop, you theoretically should be able to stitch 400 millimeters this way, which is, I think is certainly 15 point something inches. So if you were to stitch even something that was an inch wide and 15 inches tall, chances are it's not going to measure 15 inches exactly. And I noticed this specifically when I used my Brother Dream machine. So that has the 240 by 360 hoop. 360 is about 14 inches. So if you take and 240 is 9.5. So on the Brother or the Baby Lot, you can actually stitch a 9.5. Well, let's say a 9-inch by 14-inch rectangle. If you were to stitch that, chances are it's not going to measure all of 14.5 inches or 14 inches or however big it is. So yes, it's entirely possible, especially as the designs get bigger, that your applique shape, she's actually saying that the applique shape can be a bit short, which is indicating that the design is coming out a bit long.
That's the stitches pulling it up. This is Vicky
Who's
Watkins.
that?
This is Vicky Watkins. I have a
Hi,
brother
Vicky.
and a luminaire.
Okay, let me find you so that I can actually see you. There you go. So you
I've
have a
had that.
luminaire
I
as
had
well?
that problem with Simply Dreaming, and it was pulling. It pulls my designs in, and then it doesn't cover the edges.
Yeah, I've noticed it on the specifically on the Dream Machine. It doesn't happen so much on the Brother, on the baby. Oh, good heavens to Betsy, on the
On the
Boninas. But
luminaire.
it, yeah, I have noticed it on the Brother Machine.
And yes,
Not
you scan and cut.
all together, sure, but the ScanNCut is cutting accurately. It's the machine that is
Pulling up the stitches. When it stitches down, is it kind of pulling the fabric in? Maybe we need to make our FCM file a tiny bit bigger.
the challenge with that on the Simply Dreaming. The biggest shape that cuts is 11 and almost 3/4 of an inch, and you actually can't get it any bigger. It's not enough that makes a difference in the finished thing by the time you've trimmed it, but there is definitely something. Once you get above 10 inches, there is definitely a difference. If you examine the shape and the what stitches, and if you, even if it's just a simple outline, as you know, like a single stitch outline, it can be different. It can be a different size. I don't know if you guys remember, what were we doing? There was a oh my goodness, I can't remember what we were stitching, but there was a time I think it was last year when I asked people if they would be willing to stitch out a sampler design on a piece of stabilizer that I had created, and it literally was 15-inch with folks that had the Bonina hoop, or 14 inches, I think, if people had the non-Bonina hoops, the 360 tall ones. And it was kind of interesting to get everybody's results back. And I can't remember at the moment why we were doing that, but I was curious about how much each machine would shrink. Because I've noticed it does seem more like it shrinks, which is kind of a bit backwards for what Stephanie is talking about, now that I think
Tim
about
said
it.
that was the 3D quilt, the flying geese.
Yes, I think you might be right.
Wonder if there's something on the Brother that we can tension adjust.
I don't think it's a matter of tension. It doesn't seem to make any difference width-wise. It's just lengthwise.
Lengthwise. Is that pull comp?
No, I don't think so, because it happens even if you've only just got a single stitch line, and there should not be any pulling at all
Darn.
when you're stitching a single stitch line. If anybody has a really good tech and would be willing to go in and have a chat with them about it, that would be fabulous.
I don't know, but I'm going into the store in just a couple weeks, and I will have a chat with them anyway.
Okay, yeah, let me know what they
I have a
to say
Bernina
about
and a
it.
Brother both.
Because I've noticed it more so on the Brother than on the Bernina. And I'd love to know what the compensation could be. You could always modify the design. It kind of, just scale it ever so slightly, but that,
But you
it's
shouldn't
going to
have to
require
do
some
that.
math, and you shouldn't really have to do that. Exactly.
No.
Let me just see. Yeah, Rosie's saying, can you calibrate the machine?
You shouldn't have to do that either, but it sounds like it.
Yeah. for the most part, it doesn't make too much difference to the finished results. If Stephanie is working on Simply Dreaming. So one of the things with Simply Dreaming and the 7.5-inch blocks, when we had 3 blocks together, so 3 times 7.5 is 22.5, right? Yes, 3 times 7.5 is 22.5. Divide that by 2 is 11.25. So what we did was, for people who had the bigger hoops, and we do them all this way, but for people who had the bigger hoops, instead of stitching the 3 blocks, I gave the option to stitch 2 halves. So instead of stitching a piece this long in thirds, I gave the option to stitch it in 2 halves instead. And that, so 11.25 inches is, well, 11.25 inches is more likely to show up a slight error than it is at 7.5 inches. So if you have a big error, 11.25 inches, and Simply Dreaming, then you can always just go back to the 7.5-inch blocks. But it would be really good to figure out why it happens, and I've definitely noticed happening. So yes, Vicky, if you're actually going to be in talking with your tech in a couple of weeks, I'd love to hear what they have to say about it. And I can dig out that sample design that I created where I was, able to measure, and I can send that to you as well if you like.
I can do whatever. I work there time.
Well, if you could drop me an email and remind me, I'll send you the design. And then if you'd be willing to mention it when you go in, that would be fabulous.
Yes, I know the owner pretty well if she's in that day.
Okay, cool.
See what I can do, that's for sure. Because I've had trouble with Simply Dreaming, and I'm getting ready to restart with your new instructions.
Well, remember that you can always come here for help if you need it.
Well, I've never been able to get my stitches to cover my outside edges. They always pull in, which makes them pull loose. They never cover
on what on which block is in any block particularly, or all of the blocks?
Just when I started. And because I couldn't get it to start right, I stopped.
And you were using the PEZ files?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, so that's an interesting. The designs, we haven't actually updated the design. So there were actually a bunch of people who had questions about Simply Dreaming.
I was one of them.
Okay, so
gave us new dates on the design files, and I wasn't sure.
That is potentially purely because the designs were moved from one folder to another folder. So
okay.
Don't worry about that. Okay, so here's what happened. It's been one of my goals to go through all of our design collections from the beginning and update the SVG files so that everything includes the 12 by 12 box, because I think it makes it so much easier for people to make sure that the cutting files is exactly the right size. Now, the Cricut Maker used to have all kinds of funky things when you import an SVG file and there's no knowing how big it would be. So that was a problem, although that problem seems to have gone away. The Brother ScanNCut, if you ever have a file that is bigger than 11.5, or certainly if at 11.75, I think 11.5 works, but if you've got a file that's 11.75 or 12 inches in either direction, the ScanNCut will shrink it. And if you have to go to your instructions every time and say, how big is it supposed to be? Is it supposed to be 11.75? Is it supposed to be 12? That to me is a lot of hard work and has a potential to lead to a lot of frustration. But if everything is 12 by 12, which we've been doing for a number of years, then you automatically know. Now, the other thing is that we've also been including the FCM files. Brother gave us permission to do that. So for the collections which didn't have FCM files, we've been creating them. So we actually have a whole bunch of them, which we're ready to kind of get the updated SVG and the FCM files added, and Simply Dreaming was on the list. So Cass, just before Christmas, went through all of the Simply Dreaming SVG files and made sure that everything had a 12 by 12 square on, because Simply Dreaming did not have the 12 by 12. It had all, you could have been any size, right? Generated all the FCM files. And then I had a couple of questions coming in from people who were working on their quilts. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know the answer to that. And I had to go into the instructions and I'm like, we need to do something about this, because it wasn't particularly easy coming at it from 5 years later to get immediately to the answers. So we've reformatted the instructions to match our current day standard, which I think is a lot easier to follow, because you can start at the beginning and work through. We've got kind of a system for showing people, especially on the quilting, exactly where the quilting alignment points are. Some of the trimming, we just it's not exactly a reformat, although it certainly that is part of it, but it was kind of trying to streamline everything.
More
So
standardized.
I'm sorry?
More standardized to what you're doing now.
Yeah. So hopefully going from 1 month to the next, it would be just a lot easier. We also, as Marilyn pointed out, because Marilyn, bless her heart, went through the entirety of the instructions for me and made sure that everything was good and accurate. So yes, we separated the 5-inch block from the 7.5-inch blocks. And so if you're working on a 5-inch, you go this direction. If you're working on the 7.5, you can use this direction. And there's no needing to figure out, am I supposed to be doing this or am I supposed to be doing that? My battery is running low. Oh my goodness. Can you guys talk amongst yourselves for 60 seconds whilst I run and find my electrical cord? That is the one thing that I forgot when I moved in here. I will be right back.
How about that, guys? She gave us permission to chat. Everybody unmute.
Feel free to unmute yourself.
I think we can, apparently.
Yeah.
Hey, Wendy, where's Jude?
You just have to go down on the bottom and tap the screen, and then you can unmute yourself.
I guess with the official with Big Dog one, they wanted them to have unbelievable magnets.
Find how to unmute.
Profile, so it's easier to.
I don't know if you're on an iPad. If you go on the iPad, you tap the bottom, and it's got a mute button there.
Oh, and the next hoop app is
and it's probably the same on your phone.
Okay, so Sarah's back. We have to stop talking about her.
Okay.
Nice hairdo.
Sarah's back.
I'm back. And I have battery power now. We're not going to lose because of the battery. Oh my goodness. Okay. Where were we?
I don't know, but if you want to unpin me, I'll get out of the way and you can go on.
Okay. There we go.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Did I actually answer your question, Vicky?
Yes, and the ones that I had coming up, so whenever you come to me later, I'm done.
Okay. One thing though, so back in 2019, the PES version of the designs, PES for the Brother and Baby Lock machines, and the Jeff for the Janome machines 5 years ago when we first did Simply Dreaming were the biggest challenge. So if when you send me your email, you can remind me, I will reformat those and see if we can solve some of your problems, because you shouldn't be experiencing any pulling.
Okay.
On the designs, and the two formats have been significantly improved in the last 5 years. So we can definitely do a reformat on those and see if we can improve that situation for you. Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
You are welcome. Joe says, what if Sarah sent it to you in PCS? PCS is one of the formats that we stopped providing because hoop size limitations. That PCS and the HUS, and there was another one that we used to provide that we stopped providing because they all had hoop size limitations. And the designs theoretically wouldn't fit in the hoops that those particular formats were working for anyway. Okay, Kim, I saw you here. Kim, I'm coming to ask you to unmute.
I turned my camera on too, so I'm here. I like your
Okay.
haircut, Sarah. It looks really sharp.
Thank you.
If you don't mind, could you send me a message on who you go to? I desperately need one, and I have a hard time trusting hairdressers. I think primarily because I used to be one.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, she's down Gilbert and you would like to think that I know where my hairdresser is, but I think she's on Gilbert and Arcatillo, but send me an email and I will send you her.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I like
I'm
her a
kind of
lot.
floundering here with that kind of problem, but
Well, if you don't
it's
mind
pretty
driving
bad
a
when
little
your
bit for
husband tells you
Mesa.
you need a haircut, so I think I better get a haircut. With Simply Dreaming, I have found a color I really like, and I think I want to do another big quilt of Simply Dreaming. And when I did my first ones, I kind of added where I can, but I ran into problems because by the time you get to the end of making the quilt, sometimes you can't find the fabric or the color you were working with. I'd kind of like to avoid that. And do you have any guesstimates on how much is needed?
Let me pull up the document that has the different options in it. And so for anybody who is wondering, Kim, I have to say, you are probably the Simply Dreaming queen in that you've made more Simply Dreaming quilts than anybody.
I love that design, so I can't help it.
So Simply Dreaming months 1, 2, 3, and 4 were appliquing the center of the quilt. Month 5 was quilting it.
Yep.
Month 6 was creating the border that covers the join. Months 7, 8, and 9 are applique for what I call the border, but the outside area of the quilt. Months 10 and 11, and I think 12 had quilting it as well, quilted the outside. So in month 9, when the applique was finished, I gave you a document called Simply Dreaming Bigger. And I'm going to share my screen right now so we can look at it together. And it's a bunch of different options for for making the size of your quilt bigger. So do you have a particular option in mind?
Yeah, it's one of the ones that are 120 by 120.
Okay, let's just start. So this is the 5-inch blocks. The original is a 65-inch square, and you can make it 8 inches, so it's more of a twin size quilt. You can make it 80 by 80, which is a full to queen size quilt. That's a different option for the 65 by 80 twin, and another different option. 70 by 85 makes it a bit bigger. 85 by 85's full to queen. And then we get to the 7.5-inch block. So that starts out as a good size queen quilt at 97.5 inches square. So this border here is the month 6 border. Everything inside that is months 1 through 5, and everything outside it is months 7 through 12. And month 12, month 6 is creating this border here, excuse me, which sits on top of the join of these two pieces, which makes it possible to quilt this queen size quilt in your hoop. Okay, so 112 inches, 112 and a half adds a bunch more. So these two rows here, and 120 has a couple of rows of
that's the
month
one
8,
I made.
That's the one. Okay, that's the one you made, and then that one has the month 1 blocks in there.
That's the one I'm thinking about making. I'd really
Okay.
like to be able to see the quilting that's in those lighter areas. With the other one that I made, the quilting's gorgeous in it. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's just with the colored fabric sometimes, and I was using a batik print, and so sometimes the stitching kind of gets lost in that. And so
Right.
I really kind of wanted to see that here and go with, I'm going to go with batiks again. I just love batiks. What can I say? But I'm going to use more solid batiks than anything with a print on it.
Okay. One of the things that I think I know I have a tendency to do whenever I'm quilting, even if I'm quilting in the hoop, where you can pretty much guarantee that it's going to look good, I still have this, I don't know if it's the fear from free motion quilting when you think, oh, I got to hide all of my potential tension mishaps and I got to hide my stitch length mishaps. So you choose a thread that kind of blends in with the background and you can't see any of the quilting. And this quilt is kind of like that, although on the green, not on the green, on the gray quilting, we actually have it's a very pale aqua colored thread. So if you look at it up close, you can see the quilting, but from a distance you can't. But I think one of the things that all of us could do is be a lot bolder in our choice of thread color for the quilting. So use a thread color that is a much higher contrast so that you can see the quilting.
It's kind of scary when you're on a real light color, but I agree.
I know.
I've kind of been experimenting with that a little bit, and I really do like it, especially if what you're working on has a beautiful design. Why not bring it out a little bit more?
Absolutely. So fabric wise for this then, okay, so this row here is month 7. This row of circles is month 8. This is a bunch of blocks based off month 1. So month 1 is the 4 blocks here in the center. Then you're doing another month 8, and this outside part is month 9. So let's do some counting. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 blocks on each of 4 sides. So that's 48 blocks that you need a background for.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, I think it sounds right.
Now, you're doing my digitizing and design masterclass, so I know you have CorelDRAW.
Yes, I do.
And I am pulling it up right here. Well, this is the graphics suite version of it. Now, what I do is create a page that is 42 inches wide. So most fabric that you buy is going to be 44 to 45 inches wide. Okay. I go with 42 inches because that guarantees that whatever I'm planning, I can fit. And then either 36 inches representing a yard or 72 inches representing 2 yards. And I'm going to go with 72 inches because I kind of get the feeling that we'll need it. Now then, do you remember? So 7.5 inch blocks. Are we cutting them at 8.5 inches or 9 inches? Do you remember?
No, I don't. Initially,
Marilyn, do
I
you
thought they were
remember?
cut at,
8.5.
is it,
8.5.
8.5?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn.
As I said, Marilyn spent a lot of time with Simply Dreaming in the last week to make sure that all of our updates were good ones. So,
Well, if I have an
okay.
issue, I'll get a hold of Marilyn.
She did actually spot one. Thankfully, there were a couple of different, little teeny tiny minor things. There was one that I would call a major thing when one of the SVG files somehow managed to get skewed. Anyway, okay, so 8.5 inches. I am going to multiply this 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you see that fifth one, by the time we've got 5 8.5-inch blocks, that's 42.5 inches. So I'm good with that because I
Okay.
know I can cut that out of with the fabric, right?
Yeah,
So that's 5. So now we want to go 8.5 up, and we want a total of, what did I say, 48?
I think so.
So
Yeah,
that's 5,
yeah.
10,
Yes.
15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. So that's actually going to give you one extra. So 3 yards would be 108 inches. So let's put this down at the bottom of the 3-yard stretch. Okay, so that is, I would say you want at least 2.5 yards of your cream background,
Okay.
if not 3. Because
I'll probably go with 3. I like to have a little wiggle room.
yeah, 85 inches. So 36 times 2.5 is 90. So that's not a lot of wiggle room at all. So I say 3 yards of background for those guys. So then this extra month 8 row, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 times 4. Marilyn, I need the accountant brain here. 13 times 4 is 52. Plus 4
Let me
corners.
get my calculator. 13 times 4 is 52.
We should all know that off the top of our head. Wouldn't you think there's 52 weeks in a year and the quarter is 13 weeks in? Anyway, okay. So, and these guys finish at 7.5 times 3 3/4. So 8.5 times like 4.5, probably. So
4 1/4.
8.5 by 4 1/4.
I think so.
I'm gonna go with 4.5 just to be. You would think 4 and just
4.5 is good. I'm just like I said, I like a little wiggle room in case the ruler slips or something,
Yeah. So we need 52 of these guys. Actually, let's just take those off there and we'll create a new page. And for anybody who's wondering, this is exactly what I do when I create fabric requirements.
Mm-hmm.
I literally take every single piece out of the quilt and I add seam allowances to it and I lay it out on in CorelDRAW exactly like this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
you need
5,
11 of
10,
those.
15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55. So that's 49.5 inches. So again, 1.5 is going to be enough but potentially tight. 2 is going to be plenty.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Now then, for this outside stuff, the border, I don't know if you can see that the green swirly part is actually part of the month 9 block. I'm going to go back to the original. So on the original, let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Hold on a minute. So each of these swirly parts from there to there is 3 blocks. So that's 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Mm-hmm.
So 12, 48. We've already got 48 of these blocks accounted for, right?
Right.
So this guy, we've got 1, 2, 3. We're essentially adding 3 more blocks per side. So we're adding 12 more blocks.
Okay.
Right? So
Yeah.
for the blue, even if you were to go with,
That's the one I came up short with when I did my king size quilt, was that.
okay, so even if you were to go with the full 8.5-inch blocks, 25.5 inches is good. So like let's say 3/4 of a yard of that will be absolutely plenty. If you wanted to go up to a full yard, then you'll be good. There's the green, which if you get 2 yards of the green, there should be plenty of extra green. And then that leaves you with the cream, which are actually cut out as applique shapes. And so this was the cream. And if you're getting 3 yards of this, you should have plenty to do the extra applique shapes of this too.
Okay.
So 3 yards of the cream, 2 yards of the green, and let's say 1 yard extra of the blue. And then these little appliques here, I think you should have plenty of that fabric in the original requirement.
Now those are the exact same size. I don't have everything in front of me, Sarah, but those circles are the exact same size as the inner piece there.
These are month 8 blocks. These are month 8 blocks.
Okay.
Yes.
And then the ones for month.
So you might want to
6
double
or
up on those
smaller.
2 colors.
Pardon me?
You might want to double up on those 2 colors. This color here, this is the month 8 is the only time that is used, I think. The darker color is also used in month 4, a little bit in month 7, and teeny tiny bit in month 1, and I guess a teeny tiny bit here too. So you might want to double up on those 2 colors.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Sarah.
You are welcome. I am excited to see this one.
I'll get back to you in a year.
Okay.
Sarah, I have a question on my Simply Dreaming the borders.
Who's?
Oh, it's
Chris.
Chris. My hand raised.
Hi, Chris.
Hi.
Now you had Okay, so we have a couple of questions from you here too. Go
Yep.
for it. What's your question?
So if you could, I don't know if you could see mine. I'm through 5.
Yes, I can.
So what I can't get my head around, which is really driving me crazy, is what I did the 6, and you said to sew it. Well, it's not, number one, it's not matching up. I don't know why. Maybe it was my seams or something, but you just sew it and then set it aside and not attach
Yep.
it.
Yep.
So I just can't get my head around that. I don't know why. It's just
So, so let's go back to the picture then.
okay.
Actually, let me find some actual pictures for you.
Oh, okay.
Let me.
This is a 5 by. This is I only have a 5 by 7 hoop, so I wish
Okay.
my dream machine is the Luminaire.
Let me
So-
just get to. That's not what I wanted. Where do we want to go? We want to go. Not there either. In here. So, month 5.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Simply Dreaming is actually the only quilt that we actually went back to the photographer every single month.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so here is month 5, exactly as so month 4 is this piece just with the applique, and you pieced it together. Month 5, you've quilted it, and you can see we actually quilt
All
right
done.
onto the batting.
Right.
So that is where you get to when you're done month 5.
Right. I'm done with 5. I did all the quilts,
just
everything.
hang tight then. Hang tight.
Okay.
So month 6,
Yeah.
you are going to create this border.
I did that, but I don't know.
You will have pieced the blocks together, and then you will also have quilted them. After that, and quilting it does shrink it up just a little bit, but as long as you're following the instructions, you've got the right number of blocks.
Okay.
You should be good. But
so
you're
quilt them on a separate strip, like on a separate piece. Oh, okay.
Yes.
I don't know why I couldn't get my head around that, but that makes more sense. No.
So you should it definitely doesn't have to be a square of batting that has a giant bit in the middle. You can literally, these guys, if you're doing the 2.5 or the 5-inch blocks, those are actually 3 inches. So if you've got a 4-inch strip of batting, that is however long that is. And then you want to cut the corners on a miter so that you don't end up with a bunch of
batting
bulk. And I think we actually show you how to do that in the instructions. And then you're literally going to, you want to make sure that you've got this thing square, but you're literally going to just quilt that and then put it off to the side.
Okay.
And then, so in month 7 and 8.
Right. I got those done too, the hearts.
Yeah. So month 7 and 8, you're going to have, month 7 is your hearts. Month 8 is this circle border here. That's for the 5-inch blocks. If you're working on the bigger quilt.
No, just the smaller one. This one I'm working.
Well, for anybody who is working on the bigger quilt, then month 7 is this flower border here, and month 8 is the circles.
Oh, wow, that's pretty.
And then month 9 is month 9 adds this outside border on here all the way around, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that is all applique, and you've pieced your blocks together.
Mm-hmm.
Month 10, you're going to start quilting it. So month 10, you're actually going to quilt around the hearts.
Oh, okay. I see how you did
And
it.
you
there.
can see here, we've got a piece of batting,
Right.
and we've literally cut the hole out of the middle of it. We've cut the
Perfect.
center out of the middle of it.
Good idea.
So that you can, and you can literally put the, you've got a square donut shape thing going on here. And you can
Right.
literally sit this over your embroidery machine so that if your embroidery machine is sitting right here, then you're working on this bit here.
Right.
Minimum
Okay.
amount of fabric under the throat of the machine. So the rest of the quilt is actually looped over the embroidery machine.
Gotcha.
So that's months 9, month 10.
That was 10, I think. Right.
Oh, that was 10. Yep, you're right. Month 10. So month 11.
Mm-hmm.
Month 11. Okay, so month 11, we did actually quilt the circles from month 8 and the month 9 borders at the same time, because the quilting from the month 8 blocks does actually go, if you can see here, it does actually go into the month 9,
right,
the block underneath the applique, and then also around the outside. So month 12, in month 12, and interestingly enough, I don't remember what happened, but something happened with our photographer. We never ever got a flat quilt, a flat photo of the Simply Dreaming quilt.
When I finish mine, I'll send you one.
Thank you. Well, part of it is because it is such a giant thing. I don't think we even got a flat picture of the anyway, let's see. This one here kind of shows. So can you see now, and I know this is the bigger version of the quilt, but this is the center of the quilt.
Right.
This is the outside border. So this is month 7
through
from the applique point of view, right?
Through 10.
This
right.
here is what you've created in month 6, which has the little circle blocks. They've been pieced together, they've been quilted. You're going to trim them and you're going to bind the inside edge and the outside edge.
Okay.
Of that as a separate piece that's completely separate from it's completely separate from the rest of the quilt. Then you're going to trim the centerpiece and the outside pretty specifically, and you're going to stitch the centerpiece into the outside border wrong sides together so that the seam allowance is on the right side of the quilt.
Okay.
Right? And that seam allowance is hidden underneath this border, which is essentially stitched in the ditch to attach it.
Right, kind of like the stitch as you go type quilt.
I wouldn't say no, not really.
Okay.
The center of the quilt is a finished piece. And if you wanted to put a binding on it and have it done, then it could be. The outside is also a fully finished piece. And if you wanted a frame for something, then you could bind the inside edge and the outside edge and have it as a finished thing. Yep. But you're going to stitch the inside to the outside. Quilting, you've got the batting, everything there. You're going to stitch them wrong sides together.
Okay.
So that the seam allowance sits on the right side, on the top side of the quilt. That then is hidden underneath this border.
Okay.
Which you literally put into position on top of the quilt, and then you stitch in the ditch or in along the inside edge in the binding, like the ditch in between the binding and what have you, and on the outside edge too.
Okay. So you'll be
Sarah.
stitching each piece basically.
This is Marilyn.
You'll be
Oh, hi, Marilyn.
I wanted to mention one thing I had trouble with for that month 6 border piece that gets quilted and so forth.
Right.
It was too big. And so I finally measured from the green dot in the center of the circle to the green dot in the center of the next circle, all the way around to make sure that it was exactly, I think it's 2 1/4 for the 5.5 inch
Okay.
block. At any rate, I was off just a smidge. And for that many pieces, it will make you off a lot if you don't get it exact.
Well,
Right.
here's the thing though. There is actually a decent amount of leeway in here.
Mhm.
And I've kind of come to this conclusion having done the yellow submarine quilt.
Mhm.
Because if you think the yellow submarine quilt was sort of put together like this, but also sort of not put together. That there is actually a fair amount of leeway for it, you know, as long as the center is square and as long as the hole is square and 1/2 inch smaller than the center to accommodate for your seam allowance, it doesn't particularly matter where. And you've got, this thing is actually 2.5 inches wide, or it might even be 3 inches wide, I can't remember. But you've got like a full 2.5 inches here. You have to sit right in the center under here. You've got a fair amount of leeway for where that seam allowance goes. So as long as this border is square on the corners and it sits flat, there should be enough leeway for it to sit so that your points here actually are in a good spot. Now, if you look at, especially the way this photograph is sitting, I look at that point and think that's not very pointy.
Yeah. No.
Am I bothered about that?
I'm not bothered like that. No. After doing all this work, I wouldn't have that stuff minor.
So I think when we were doing this back in 2019, it was the first time we'd ever tried anything like this.
Yeah.
And I think
it was,
for me especially, we were mildly terrified by the prospect. And yeah, it was nerve-wracking watching people getting to this point and putting their quilts together. And there was a little bit of freaking out going on. I have to say there was probably a lot of freaking out going on where I was sitting, watching all of you guys working on your quilts. But we made it. And as Kim has proved, Kim's made 3 of these. At least one of them was a full-size big one, and she's going to make an even bigger one. So
yeah, no, I'm definitely,
you know, and there are a lot of Simply Dreaming quilts out there. It's interesting because in the last 3 months or so, a lot of people have been finishing them too, which has been wonderful to see.
I had some family issues and I had to battle cancer, so I had to put it on hold, but I'm cancer free and I'm back sewing.
I'm so happy to hear that, Chris. That is beautiful news.
Yeah, so we're gonna finish my Simply Dreaming. That's my goal.
Awesome. Well, we will be here. If you have any more questions, we will definitely be here. And jump into the Facebook group as well, because there's lots of people who have made them, and Kim is one of our experts. Marilyn also. So keep in touch and let us know how you're getting on.
Thank you. And thank you very much for helping me.
You're so welcome. Okay. Let's see. So it was actually 2 more questions. Well, there's 3 more questions. Okay, so Anita said, is Anita? Anita, yes, the instructions for what for what you've got now are absolutely compatible. So if you want to just jump right in the new version, then go for it. I think they're probably going to be a lot easier to read and follow along. Anybody who purchased the original version, you have got the new version. You don't have to ask for it. It is in your library. We decided, instead of switching the old version out for the new version, to just give you the both versions, leave the original as it was, and give you the new version, just in case anybody was still working on it and kind of had a system going. I didn't want to disrupt anything. So the new version is in there. It's a separate thing. It should be, I think it's right in front of the original version in your library. Barbara is not actually here, but she says, can we please have the applique version for the Awakened Hearts collection? I am working on it. I have my fingers crossed that April 24th, I will be able to give you everything for it. We are actually a person short. I am doing all of the instruction writing, the stitching, everything, finance, everything that goes. So things are taking a little bit longer than they used to, but I'm working on it. And April 24th is when I'm hoping that I will have the applique version of the Awakened Hearts for you. And then Priscilla is not actually here, at least I don't see her. Working on a 3D mini wall hanging, has the outside borders fabric left, but can't find the quilting designs. Okay, somebody asked me this the other day as well. It is let me just figure this out. So the 3D mini quilting for the outside borders is in okay, so let me, and Priscilla says she is going to watch the recording, so I'm going to give you a screen here. Okay, so and Priscilla is a Bonina person, so she's going to be looking at the EXP. So in your 3D mini folder, you'll have the designs, whichever format you're using. So for Priscilla on her Bonina, that's going to be the EXP. You have the center panel, which has all of the applique and quilting for the center of the quilt. D and whatever that says, diamond in a square. So the diamond in a square blocks the piecing, the applique, the quilting is in there. The flowers and the petals, everything for that in that folder. The flying geese, everything for that in there. And then quilting for either the version with the circular vase in the center or the tall vase in the center is in one of these two folders. So if you're doing the little tall vase, these are going to be your quilting designs. I think B for border, FG flying geese border, there's the corners and there's the sides, top and bottom. So these the quilting designs that you're looking for, Priscilla, are going to be in here. So again, if you're doing the circular version, it'll be in here. If you're doing the tall vase version, it will be in here. That's where you need to be looking. Okay. I think that has all of the questions that have been answered. We are up to date with questions from last week and this week. Thank you so much for joining me today. We will be back, let's see, 2 weeks from today on April something. Let me just grab my calendar and I will tell you April 19th. So I will look forward to seeing you then. Have a fantastic couple of weeks. Do lots of stitching. If you have questions, jump into the Facebook group, or if you're not on Facebook, send me an email. And we will be happy to get back to you. And I'll see you in a couple of weeks.